coming at you with something a little bit different here, doing an old-fashioned Old Man Orange Presents of a classic episode of Via VHS that wasn't released from, maybe almost even over a year ago or something like that. There's a handful of them in, like, the vault, so be sprinkling them out as time goes on. But let's jump on into Dante's Peak, one of my favorite flicks.
All right, so we're back again this week. So last week, we were in 1996. We had some tornadoes, and we wrecked some shit and had a good time. We went to the Sun Zone, and now we're going a year into the future, and we're talking Dante's Peak this week. We're keeping in this 90s disaster movie theme, and this movie gave me a panic attack, and so I haven't got over it. So.
I remember as a kid, like, I would literally have, like, those kind of, like, I guess you would call them sort of nightmares, but, like, almost those, like, I always call them, like, disaster nightmares. It's like that thing where it's like you have either a fire or a volcano or something that no matter what, you just can't seem to escape from, no matter how hard you, like, how far you go. It's just always right behind you. It always seems up until you wake up and then you go, oh, good, I think that's over. But that's sort of like what Dante's Peak was. It was always this one where it's like, oh, well, a volcano, like, that's something that could kind of happen. Where, like, Twister's one of those ones, like, I live far enough away from a tornado, so other than seeing one when I was in Tennessee, for the most part, you don't see those. But a volcano, it's like, well, there's Mammoth. It's only like, a hop, skip, and a jump across a couple mountain ranges that direction. So, I mean, they even talk about it in this movie. They're like, remember that time that we alerted Mammoth and then they went all crazy and the whole town collapsed? They're like, yeah, we can't do that again. Pierce Brosnan, stop telling people there's a volcano going to blow.
I don't have to worry about volcanoes here or earthquakes. Like, we'll have those little tremors every once in a while, and like a lawn chair will fall over, and they'll be posting memes. We will rebuild. Like, nothing happens. But yeah, I mean, I guess I had disaster dreams when I was a kid. My parents are Southern Baptist, and so I went to a Baptist school when I went to Baptist church growing up. So pretty much all my disaster dreams are about the rapture.
Yeah, that would happen too.
Yeah. So mine were pretty intense and caused a lot of existential crisis. Probably why I'm so screwed up. But hey,
Well, I don't know. My mother showed me Night of the Living Dead when I was 6 years old. That was a little bit traumatic, I guess.
I guess if you can handle anything, handle that, you can handle anything.
Yeah, that's what I felt. I felt like it was a good, good upbringing. A few zombie nightmares and you're good to go.
Yeah, I rarely had nightmares from movies, and when I did, it was very random. It was usually something that made me think a lot, not that scared me. I had a random Star Wars nightmare when I was a kid. That Darth Vader and a couple stormtroopers came into our house, took my family. And then I think I had a Jurassic Park nightmare, and Pat Sajak was there. I don't know why.
Yeah. That's always the weirdest part about dreams, is it like the random combination of things together, and it's just like, I wonder why my brain thought that was good acting choices and so on to put together in this play.
Yeah, I don't know. I had some weird ones, but this one, when I just rewatched Dante's Peak, I realized I don't even remember it. Like, I remembered a few scenes. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this thing. I remember this happening. It had been much longer since I watched it than I realized. It had been quite a while, and I really don't remember the last time I sat down and watched it all the way through. And I have to be honest, it was kind of better than I remember. I mean, it wasn't. There's some flaws. There's some flaws with this movie. A lot of it being the science, even though I think this is actually more scientifically accurate than Twister, probably. I don't know, but I mean, they're both not great in that regard. But yeah, this was pretty fun.
Yeah, this one to me, this is my all-time favorite disaster movie, is Dante's Peak. Like, I personally consider it a perfect disaster movie the whole way through. It's fun. It's got amazing special effects and so on. And I kid you not, probably this is the third time I've watched this in about the last 2 years, I think. Because I remember, I got it on Blu-ray, about 2 years ago, because I only had the VHS copy for the longest time. And I watched it then. I know I watched it again. It seems like only like 4 or 5 months ago. And then, of course, for when we did the podcast here. But this is one of those ones, I mean, I used to bust out the VHS like all the time. I think it was just this double whammy of like, you know, Pierce Brosnan. Like, I just kind of like, before GoldenEye came out, like my parents were like, hey, here's all the 007 movies, you know, or it probably was on like TBS. Hey, here's all the 007 movies. So like I was just extremely into 007, and then going to see GoldenEye in the theaters and whatnot, I was just like, oh, Pierce Brosnan, anything he's in. It's like, you know, Mrs. Doubtfire, you know, Dante's Peak. You know, and so like I think that was just kind of it. And then also to combine it, it's like you got Sarah Connor in there, you got Linda Hamilton in this movie. So it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger being my other biggest thing of that time period. You got 007 and Arnold together now, which, you know, Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. This movie was like the perfect storm. Plus, it had an amazing, like, volcano explosions. Like, how cool is that? That almost feels like it could literally happen in your backyard.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously this is similar to the whole Deep Impact Armageddon thing, where there's two volcano movies at the same time. And in this case, there was a race to get to the theaters first, and Dante's Peak won. And it's also the better movie by far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Even though it's not, there's some areas where it's very flawed and it's not a great movie all the time, it's still, compared to Volcano, just light years ahead of that. And it's actually really fun. I mentioned Deep Impact. I'd put this on the Deep Impact level, where it's like, it's really good. I enjoy it. The flaws that are in it are very obvious and kind of bring it down, but I can get past them and have fun. I love Deep Impact. It's one of my favorite movies. You know, I know it's in the middle. It gets really, really boring. But yeah, so obviously, I guess, you know, Pierce Brosnan, as you mentioned, Linda Hamilton. Usually when I say that guy from the Thing, it's usually like a guy from a movie I can't remember, but this guy was literally from The Thing, and I can't remember his name. He was in the movie The Thing by John Carpenter. And then you have, like, it's kind of similar to Twister in the fact that you have this group of like plucky kind of like geologists, volcanologists, and they come into town, but you don't have that Philip Seymour Hoffman character. You don't have that one you really get attached to. I don't even think you learn their names.
The closest guy to Philip Seymour Hoffman, now I'll say he's not even on the level of Philip Seymour Hoffman, but it's the guy that I think of him from True Lies in the van with Tom Arnold. The guy with the curly hair was like, coffee. Like he's like trying to chew scenery. It's just not working out as well.
No.
That's just what it's just a goof in it, but like not like the Philip Seymour Hoffman lovable goof that like you want to kind of feed him biscuits and like take him home. But
yeah, there's got like these little side characters, with the exception of Pierce Brosnan's boss. Really, they could have just been background people that had like, here's a piece of paper, little tiny piece of dialogue, and go away, and it wouldn't really change the movie that much. You don't get attached to them. There is the one guy he helps on the volcano.
Yeah, the guy who always kicks the robot.
Yeah, he's kind of like kicking the technology. He reminded me of Dennis Nerdy from Jurassic Park. Whatever his name is.
Nedry.
Yeah. Maybe it's just the jacket he wore. Maybe you think of that, but that's kind of who he reminded me of. And he has a little bit of screen time, and you kind of care about him a little bit. But really, it's Pierce Brosnan, Linda Hamilton, and her kids that are kind of like the focus of this movie.
In the science group of Pierce Brosnans, there is that one chick that's in there. Literally, the one chick. That lady's in Godzilla. The 1998 one. She plays like the Brooklyn guy's like, you know, girlfriend or wife or whatever she is.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
it's like that's like a weird like those. It's like, oh, there we go, 2 disaster movies. She went from 97, 98.
Man, yeah. I mean, this is the trend. I mean, from the mid 90s on. I mean, you have Independence Day, you have 2 meteor movies, 2 volcano movies, Godzilla. I mean, those are a few other ones that try to destroy the world in this time frame. I mean, this is definitely one of the better ones. I think it's. Like I said, it gave me anxiety. Definitely at the end, this movie stressed me the hell out. We'll get to that. I mean, I guess I'll set the stage a little bit. Dante's Peak, if you never saw it, go watch it before you listen to the review, because we definitely spoil it. But it's like what, 3 years old, so get over it, I guess.
Well, it's that thing, no matter what, at the end of the day, you know, just like Stan Lee always said of comics, you know, at some point, it's always someone's first movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I always say it. It doesn't matter how old the movie is, you know. You never know what movies you've seen in order and what movies I've seen in order and so on, but I assume if someone's probably listened to, they have an understanding of the film.
Yeah, definitely go check out Dante Speak if you haven't seen it. But essentially, this is a little town called Dante Speak. That's what the movie's named after. It's at the start of the movie. Well, not the opening scene, but you kind of learn a little bit about this town. It's this quaint little mountain town. Dude, what state is it? Is it in Oregon?
In the movie, it takes place in Washington. The town itself is actually in Idaho, but right next to Washington.
Yeah. Okay. So I couldn't remember if the movie specified what state it's in, but Dante Speak is the town, the name of the fictional town. Second, and it gets an award for second best town in America, population of 20,000. And Linda Hamilton's the mayor. And she's a divorcee. She's got 2 kids. One's a little brat, kind of an a-hole, getting in trouble.
Just hanging out in the mines. Like, that is just like, it was like, when she goes to fight, she's like, I go pick up my son. Like, where's he at? Oh, he's at the old abandoned mine. And he just comes up with these, like, 2, like, delinquent kids who look like they're, like, 5 years older than him. And it's just like, what is he doing? What do you think he's doing in there? With those older kids. And those older kids just come out and be like, whatever, 90s kind of grunge, like Marilyn Manson looking.
Yeah, he had no business hanging around with those little kids. They're getting in trouble. And for a split second, when you first see Linda Hamilton's son in this, is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt? And then you realize it's like great value, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's not really him, but just for like a split second, it looks like Angels in the Outfield era. Gordon-Levitt. But it's not him. I don't even know if these kids have done anything since, really.
Well, it sounds so weird. There's like the daughter, and when I was flipping through, just looking at stuff, like just seeing what other people did, I saw a picture of her, and I kid you not, I looked at it and was like, oh, that must have been that, like, I was thinking it was that nerdy scientist lady or whatever who's in Godzilla as well, too, and it was like, oh, no, that's the little girl. And I'm like, she's the same age as me. She looks like she's like 20 years older than me in this picture here. I'm not saying she looks bad, but she just looked like way older, and I was like, it's just so weird when someone's the exact same age as you, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's just like, what? That's also what 30 can look like too, or whatever she is.
I think it's like I do the same thing with Scarlett Johansson. I think it's her, but I feel like we're a month apart. I think she's like a month older than me. I think. I might be wrong on that. It doesn't matter.
Well, technically, it's like Emma Stone is like only a month away from me. It sounds so weird, but like the exact same age as her, pretty much.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
That's all I think about whenever you see that kind of stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I remember seeing this. Like, that's how much Emma Stone's got done, and the last 12 years. Jesus Christ!" I make funny books and podcasts.
Hey, you've got real talent, man. They don't know it yet. Just wait till we're gonna get ourselves in front of the people, that decide things. But yeah, so I mean, obviously you watched this one a lot as a kid. I remember watching this one as a kid and enjoying it, but I for some reason in the back of my mind, I don't know why. I don't know if it was compared to Volcano, which I never liked. I never liked that movie. But I just, in my mind, I'm like, I don't really like this movie. This is what I always remembered. But when I rewatched it, I didn't feel that way at all. And there were definitely certain parts that stuck out to me that really bothered me. But essentially, what's going on in this movie is Pierce Brosnan at the very beginning. It's similar to Twister.
Yeah.
You brought up Twister. You have the disaster at the very beginning of the movie, the opening scene of the film. And Pierce Brosnan's in Colombia? Right?
Yeah, he's in Colombia. I always want to say he's like in the Philippines, but then it's like the second that scene always starts up, it's like, oh yeah, it's Colombia, duh. But I don't know why in my mind I always started out like, oh, he's in the Philippines.
He does mention he goes to the
Philippines. Yeah, so maybe that's where I get these things all tied together and whatnot. But Pierce Brosnan there, he's like looking for his girlfriend, running around. Of course, she's like, oh, let's study this. He's like, oh, are you crazy? Look outside.
That was a disturbing opening scene, actually.
It is pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, Pierce Brosnan, if he says to Linda Hamilton that he goes anywhere where there's a volcano with an attitude, because that's a cool movie thing to say.
Well, it's the 90s. It's attitude generation.
He delivers it like, no, he delivers those one-liners better than most because he's just so, like, he sounds like a Shakespearean actor, which he's probably not. But he delivers lines like he is sometimes, just real smooth. But yeah, like the opening scene, they're almost out of the town or whatever, like they're getting away. You got the pyroclastic flow is happening, and ash and debris and like little volcano meteors are falling from the sky, and then they're almost out of town, and his girlfriend like gets a volcanic cinder.
Yeah, I guess right. Just little volcano meteor right through the head, just sitting there, bleeding out, just big old hole in her head, whatnot. Pierce Brosnan's like driving, holding her, and crying. It's like oh shit, get ready for some volcano action, kids.
That lady delivered it too, because she's like, I got 1 minute and 12 seconds of screen time. I am dying the shit out of this. I am so dying. Like, she delivered. But yeah, that's basically Pierce Brosnan's backstory going into this. And then you catch up with him 4 years later. He's doing a lot of push-ups.
Yeah, he's busting out those push-ups.
Yeah, staying in shape, and basically he's a workaholic. He doesn't want to take a break. Everybody's like, "Hey, man, you're getting on our nerves. You need to get out of town," and he won't do it.
Yeah, he solves volcano mysteries. That's what he does.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. He doesn't got time to go fishing down in Florida.
No time for that. He's a volcanologist.
Yeah.
So I guess he's supposed to be taking a break or vacation. They don't clear it too well, and he gets called to Dante's Peak to check out a few little tremors. Like there's like very minimal activity, just enough to kind of like warrant somebody to go out and knock on the volcano's door. Like, you all right in there? I mean, basically that's what he's doing. Like, it's not hardly anything.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just like, hey, you know what? There's little tremors. This will get Pierce out of the office for a while.
What's his name? I can't even remember his name.
I think it's Harry in this one.
Yeah.
It's just weird because like Harry doesn't seem like a Pierce Brosnan name.
No.
Harry! Like...
No. I'm just going to keep calling him Pierce Brosnan because Harry does not... Like, this was obviously written for somebody else. I didn't remember seeing in the trivia who else was considered.
I think if at one point there was Michael Douglas was going to play it, which I could totally see Michael Douglas play. I could see Michael Douglas being named Harry, too, almost.
Yeah.
Harry just seems like that's like, like, I don't know, it's like Woody Harrelson playing that or something like that. You need like one of those characters.
Yeah. John Goodman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if Michael Douglas would have played this character, I don't know why. This probably makes no sense, but I feel like his character would have been similar to the one in Ghost of the Darkness.
Oh, gosh. One of my favorite movies right there, too. That's almost like a disaster movie. It's like a disaster movie with animals, I guess you could say. I guess it's still like in that horror movie category. But
we should review that one soon. That one's pretty good.
That movie's so good. That's another one of those ones I remember watching like almost as like a little kid because I watched it like right when it came out on video or whatnot. And it was just like I remember being like up at like midnight 30 being like, this movie's so cool.
Yeah, but watching it doesn't age as well. And Michael Douglas really chopped that movie up. But yeah, I guess we'll save it for the review on that one. But we should do that one soon.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. But basically, Pierce Brosnan goes to Dante's Peak, and this is when Linda Hamilton and the town is getting the award for, I think, from Money Magazine for second best town in America, population over 20,000. You hear this several times. And he's like, he catches up with her right after the meeting, and that's kind of where things start. She's like, I gotta show you around the mountain. They're obviously trying to set these two up in the story pretty quickly.
Yeah, just like those ones, just be like, hey, by the way, it's like here's this British Irish guy shows up to your house. I mean, go show him around the mountain. He's in the volcanoes and stuff. And then he's like, oh, wait, by the way, I got to pick up the kids. And that's where we find, like, whatever, the little Billy kid or whatnot, just like comes out of the mine shaft, just like crawls out, and this mine's just like left in like town, like Silent Hill style or something like that, like just a dead center, and whatnot. And it's based on that mine's actually like a real mine that's right there in that town and what have you. And I think that's even like what they named their like school football team after and what have you in the real Idaho town.
Mm-hmm. The miners.
Yeah, something like that. So they get the kids.
Because I got some opinions on that.
But I like. Oh no, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the way they're setting them up in this movie, though, and like she's divorcee, she's got the kids. The only problem, let me say this statement like fully before anybody judges me on it, because I don't mean this mean at all. It's actually the opposite. It's hard for me to take Linda Hamilton seriously in the lead in a romantic role. Not because she's not attractive, or not because she's not feminine. It's just because no matter what, I think she's gonna can beat anybody's ass.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she could take Pierce Brosnan, honestly.
So what you're saying is that guy probably, you know what I mean? He got kind of scared after he saw her destroy a machine and just, he traveled back in time. He was like, he didn't die. Well, God, this movie almost, those kids, like, if you think about those kids' age, they could almost be like John Connor.
This is literally Terminator.
This could be another, like instead of like her, like maybe this is an alternate future or whatnot. Yeah. Where in 1997 it wasn't Judgment Day, it was Dante's Peak. Because that kid right there he's even got like a John Connor haircut.
Every kid in the 90s had the John Connor haircut.
Well, that's like, I remember going to like the barber, I'm like, I want a John Connor haircut. The guy's like 90 years old looking at me like, oh, John Connor. Here's a picture of Terminator 2.
I had the bowl cut going on for sure. I had that happen.
Guy Gardner had a bowl cut forever. That's my favorite Green Lantern.
Hey, man. Hey, I rocked it. I did pretty well. So, yeah, basically the first half of this movie is just, Linda Hamilton taking Pierce Brosnan around. And he's getting like really small clues. He'll look at a rock and be like, everyone's fucked. He'll get like these really small clues and nobody really pays attention to them. But then there's the he
tests like the pH level of the water.
Yeah, with the pH, which is funny. He's like, "You pull milk?" Basically. But no, there's the scene with the hot springs.
Yep.
Which is pretty scary. They traumatize the shit out of these kids for the next hour and a half.
Well, that's what, like, as a kid watching this movie, that's when you think hot springs. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Dante's Peak.
Yeah, exactly. This couple goes up there, as the grandma says, for a little bit of hot nookie.
Oh, hot nookie.
And this pervy old grandma, I'll get to her in a minute. But this couple, while this ceremony is going on for the award, they're up there in the hot springs. I think they're backpackers or something. And I guess it gets really hot all of a sudden because I guess maybe the lava's rising through the surface and the volcano is starting to become active and they get boiled. Mm-hmm. And they find this because Linda Hamilton's kids are getting ready to jump into the hot spring and Pierce Brosnan's like, no, and saves the kids. So he's already kind of, becoming their dad.
Who jumps into a hot spring? That's all I got to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who doesn't feel the water first? Like, it sounds terrible. Even jumping into a hot tub is never really the greatest idea ever. It's kind of like, I think you ease into a hot tub, you jump into a pool. You know what I mean?
This is the same kid playing in an abandoned mine like 5 minutes earlier.
Exactly. With like his like meth kid, friends. They're in like Idaho, Washington area. What do you think those kids are up to?
Yeah. He was ready to jump in. Yeah, I was thinking of what this made me think of when I was watching it is the Eddie Murphy skit from Saturday Night Live where he's playing James Brown. He's like, oh God, it's a hot tub. Hot tub. That's what I was making me think of. Like, you got to dip your toes in that, man. But nah, John Connor was about to
just go for it. He doesn't care. This is alternate reality John Connor.
Yeah. I like alternate reality John Connor. But,
did I say about that kid, though, is that kid is set up to be like, oh, this kid's going to be a really shitty kid. And he's not really. You know what I mean? No. He's set up like that, and you think that's where it's going to go. And then he's just like, oh, no, he's fine. He's got some 90s attitude, but that's about it.
Well, he does steal a car later in the movie and almost get everyone killed. Like, when you think about it, this kid really causes some shit.
Yeah, he sets up a lot of hassle for Pierce Brosnan. Let's just say Pierce Brosnan didn't know what he was literally getting into.
Well, no, he didn't know what he's getting into. Like, and these kids, I feel bad for them because not only is, they're abandoned by their dad, now this volcano is about to blow up, and then all of a sudden there's this new father figure inserting himself into this traumatic situation. I don't feel like these kids turn out well later, especially with what happens at the very end, towards the end of the movie. But so Chris Brosnan's like, listen, shit's getting real. We need to put the town on alert, and it's basically Jaws from here on out, like for the next like half hour, because the mayor this time the mayor's like, hey, maybe we should put the town on alert. Like, the mayor's the good guy, but then one of the other council members was like, nah, because this schmuck over here, like Johnny douchebag, like, you know what? He's Mr. Republican in this movie.
Captain Republican.
Yeah, Captain Republican. He's Captain Republican in this movie. He's like, he's going to give them an $18 million investment for some business that they don't really clarify.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, this is a really inconvenient time for this fucking volcano to happen.
Yeah, just like, hey, Mr. Volcano expert, just go tell the volcano to hold off for another 1,000 years so I can get this business deal done.
Yeah, basically that was what the town hall's reaction was, and now we got to go into damage control. Like, you have 18 people in this town, guys. You need to chill the.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of those. I look at this town. It's like, God, like they could easily put a evacuation notice into this town. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. It's not that big of a town. They do the thing for me when like ever there's like a forest fire that's major. They're like, hey, yo, like the police officers will come by and they'll be like, they'll give you that warning, be like, we're gonna give you a warning now, but there might not be enough time for us to come back again when stuff gets real. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll go somewhere. That's that kind of warning. There might not be enough time for a second one, so start thinking about it now.
Evacuated before, like, you had to leave. One of that. Okay.
There was about like 8 years ago. There was a big fire like in Yosemite and whatnot, and it was getting kind of close. Like you could watch the planes fly over the house, and they'd be like so low, and they just had these massive bombers from the forest fire or the fire department just kind of going over and over and over and over again and whatnot. And you kind of at nighttime you see the big old glow. Didn't get close enough, but you know there's always that moment where you never know when that day might happen.
Yeah, I've been evacuated for hurricanes a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Once in North Carolina. One was for Hugo, which was a big one here, and it was supposed to actually hit our hometown. And they evacuated us. We went to Pennsylvania, and then while we were in Pennsylvania, the storm turned, missed our town, and went through Charlotte, which is inland, destroyed everybody. And my grandparents didn't have like power for like a month.
Oh, jeez.
No branches down or anything.
Yeah. I remember the same fire, this before we get too distracted. They literally, the forest department, shaved this land, to make a blockade. And then all of a sudden you kind of realize, you're like, wait a second, I'm on the wrong side of that blockade. That's literally like being in like World War I, and then you're like in France and whatnot, and then you notice they're digging the trench behind your house. You're like, oh, no. Yeah, I'm on no man's land now.
Oh, man, that's bad. That's really bad. Yeah, I am. Yeah, that would be a scary situation. And this one, a volcano is not one that you like, especially if it's like right next to your town. There's no riding it out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a hurricane. We're like, I'm staying here.
Well, the grandma was literally like, I'm staying here. Like, she actually acts like she worships that volcano. That volcano's been here my whole life. Just provided for us. It's brought us great fortune. Like, she's like really invested in that volcano. Like, there's no way it's going under. It's going to be here. I put all my stocks into this volcano.
We have a business relationship. This volcano would tell me if it's going to blow.
Yeah, like, she's almost got like this personal, like, me and the volcano, we have tea together, every week. Don't you be telling me you know more about it than I do.
Yeah. Grandma, I'm going to get to her in a minute because she makes me so angry in this movie. But so for the next little bit, basically, it's Linda Hamilton and Pierce Brosnan flirting, and Linda Hamilton finds out about his ex-girlfriend who got volcanoed in the head
Yeah.
in Colombia. And, and basically it's Pierce Brosnan being like, hey, we're in a bad situation. And everybody's like, well, the science says different. But you're talking to Pierce Brosnan, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
He knows.
He just stopped Goldeneye only 2 years ago. Come on, guys. Get with the program.
Yeah. He's clearly the star of this movie. Like, you need to pay attention to what's going on. So, like, they'll go on the mountain and, like they'll study it. Nothing happens. They'll study it. And then they get up on top. They have a little tremor. This guy gets his leg broke. And they're still like, Pierce Brosnan is an idiot. Nothing's happening in this town. And they don't realize they're in trouble until Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton are finally about to seal the deal. All right, things are getting hot and heavy. And she gets a good glass of water, and it's sulfur. It's brown sulfur water.
Uh-huh.
And they go check out the water supply, and they're like, here's your proof, dumb sons of bitches. This volcano's going up. And from there, it's pretty much action.
I love how Pierce also he doesn't call. He literally drives there and kicks down like the motel door in the middle of the night just to walk into the restroom and be like, check the water out.
What are you doing here? Proving you wrong.
Yeah. I want to see your expression in person.
Yeah. He basically owns that scene. He owns his boss. And his boss does admit later, you know what, for what it's worth? You were right, I was wrong. And I respect him for that.
Yeah.
He still dies.
Yeah, he still doesn't make it, but it's only because I always think about that scene where he doesn't make it. I know it's a little bit jumping ahead, but he's crossing this bridge, and of course, I love how the Humvees for some reason drive in front. You think they put the van in the center, so if anything, I thought that my whole life. I'm like, why is the 2-wheel drive van in the rear?
My thing is, why is he not in just one of the Humvees? Like, did they not? They couldn't have seat for one more guy.
Well, what I'm thinking is because he wanted the equipment. You know what I mean? He's the boss. He's the invested one. That's that kind of thing that nobody else thinks about but him. And he's like, we got $500,000 plus worth of equipment in this van. Like, I can't just let it go. So he's driving the van. But for me, I just think it's like, why is he not in the middle of the Humvees? Those Humvees should be around that van. They just like, whatever, screw that guy. We got 4-wheel drive. I'm 19 years old. I was put into a Humvee. What, we expect me to make decisions?
Yeah, that stressed me out. That stressed me out so bad. Oh my God.
And then he goes across that bridge, and there's also that moment too where it's almost like if he probably would have just jumped out of the van and just went for it, he could have made it. But I still think it's supposed to. He thought, he's like, I can make this equipment across. I can make it across. It's one of those moments in life where you think you really can, but you can't.
Yeah, you don't play those games in life. You don't do that. My ass will be like, I would have left the equipment.
He's a better man than me. But yeah, you know what? But then again, if he would have saved that equipment, think about that. He would have been like, oh shit, you got all the equipment out of there. You know, I mean, that's been pretty good because I didn't know what we were going to do if you didn't get that equipment out.
Well, he didn't anyway. He goes in the river with them.
Yeah, so like, I guess I'm getting a job at Taco Bell. There goes our future in that van.
We're not going to get corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this movie.
Do you got to tie it up?
Oh, wait. No, I lost it. Never mind. This movie's also brought to you by Pepsi. Clearly.
Oh, yeah. And Mountain Dew. You have to
just like Twister. Like a lot of Pepsi. Also Mountain Dew.
Yeah, they just kind of went hand. It's like no Diet Pepsi, though. you don't drink a Diet Pepsi in the. Did you see one?
I saw one.
Okay.
I saw one Diet Pepsi in the machine. That was like the little thing in Linda Hamilton's little cafe.
Oh,
one Diet.
Okay.
I was looking.
Yeah, because I noticed I did see a lot of Mountain Dew and Pepsi, and it's just one of those ones that, like, we know where you are.
Oh my God! I had my Surge can. I don't know what happened to my Pepsi can.
I see your Surge one there. The Surge one's amazing. I'll have to find. I have a Surge pencil somewhere.
Of course you.
The most random Surge object. I remember the ones like I literally got like in school one day. I'm like, I'm taking this pencil. Like I already knew in like 1996. I was like, yes, this Surge pencil is mine. We're not sharpening it. Actually, it might be sharpened once, but I mean, I wasn't gonna use it. I was like, this is too cool. I'm keeping it.
I admire you for this. I really do. But anyway, something I want to touch on. So that bothered you with the whole van. Something that bothered me, and this is before that sequence, and this is kind of like how things get ramped up. So when the sulfur gets in the water, they're finally like, okay, we're gonna call this meeting and tell everybody to evacuate, which is kind of too late at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what do we do? What's the best way to handle this situation? So the police officer goes to the town, gets on the loudspeaker, but instead of saying, hey, get your shit and get the fuck out, here's what he says. I want everybody to go to one spot in the middle of town to where it's really hard to get out in a really fast, efficient way. Yeah. I want everybody to cram into this auditorium at a very dangerous moment in time. If everybody could do that, that would be great.
Yeah, our school has all of 2 exits. I also love that that police officer is given orders when the National Guard shows up. You know that the National Guard's like, yo, buddy, you can just sit down now. You're sheriff of this 1,500 person town.
They probably were just like, hey, let this guy do all the work.
Yeah, that guy's just like, I'm glad you boys are here, so this is what my plan is. You're going to go right up to the hills up here and evacuate these guys. I want you to go down to downtown, and there's this cafe over here. You got to make sure they get out, because God forbid if we don't make those good sandwiches, in the future.
Yeah, that whole thing was weird.
That sheriff's taking too much responsibility.
Oh yeah. Well, what this film does is with all the setup, it gives you it's not just one disaster and you're trying to get away from it. Like with Twister, which I did think Twister was a better movie, but one thing that's it's consistently tornadoes,
mm-hmm.
In different ways. What happens with this movie is once it gets going, once the disaster element takes effect, it's one thing after another. Now was people getting out of town and they're trampling each other in the gymnasium, and then all of a sudden this little tiny town turns to New York City and everybody's got 5 cars. They're trying to get out of this town. So that's the first step. And that's hectic. And they were like, where's the kids? We got to get to this place. And the next thing is where I get really mad is Linda Hamilton calls grandma like, hey, you got to get out of there. And she's like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to ride the volcano out on the volcano. I'm going to ride the volcano out on the volcano.
Yeah, she's just I guess it's maybe grandma's I feel like I'm going to die at any moment now. Me and the volcano have been here for the last 85 years. We got a connection. So just don't get me. Let me just die the way I want to die. And of course the kids decided to ruin that. They ruined grandma's magical death. She was probably going to have a ritual volcano death out there. You know what I mean? And then of course kids show up in the Toyota 4Runner being like, Grandma, we came to save you. She's like, you're ruining my plans, Billy.
Yeah, Linda Hamilton and Prince, I was about to say Prince. Linda Hamilton and Pierce Brosnan get to the house and there's this horribly written note. We went to save Grandma. Oh my God. First of all,
think about how pissed you'd be.
I would be livid if my son did that, but I'll put myself in the kid's shoes. If I would have done that, my dad was a Marine. I would have stayed on the mountain. I would not have wanted it to find me. I'll just, you know what? I'll take the mountain. Yeah, but it's going to kill us. I want to take the mountain.
Mountain's probably a safer option at this point.
Yeah. I was like, I'll just stay here because there's no way I would have survived. At that point, I'm dead either way.
Hey, I'll take my chance with the mountain. You know what I mean? You never know.
Yeah, it was, God, that just drove me so crazy. So they go up there to get her, and then Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton got to go. And this is when stuff starts to happen. They got to snorkel through the river, and ash is falling down, and trees are falling down. They have to go all through some crazy shit just to get to grandma's. And then when they get there, now they're on the mountain. So they're even in worse shape. And they find the kids, and Linda Hamilton's like, you bitch.
Yeah. It's as far as the kids go, that's one of those moments where you can kind of easily go, oh, those kids are kind of stupid. But at the same time, they love their grandma. Let's just say that. Grandma was pure awesome to them. That was the kind of grandma who's like, come on, kids, we're going to, go smoke a cigar and, swing off the rocks like Tarzan. You want to do that? Because that grandma was that one that's she's not like most people's grandmas are like, oh, we're going to bake cakes and hang out and sit around and watch the pony show and whatnot. No, that grandma's like, oh, there's a zip line over here. We're going to go ride that. But grandma, you're 85. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's the grandma takes you to, like, Magic Mountain to go, like, ride all the rides.
That was my grandma. She took me to Carowinds.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. They, but see, the thing is with her, like, that's not even, like, Linda Hamilton's mom. That's her ex-husband's mom. And she doesn't even know where her son is.
You know what's weird? There's a moment she literally mentions, I could have swore she mentions, like, that guy disappeared, like, 26 years ago. Which made no sense to me. I was like, wait a second, what? These kids aren't that old.
I think she said 6 years ago.
Oh, maybe 6 years ago. Maybe that I misread it like the last time I heard. I was like, wait, what? Like, he's been gone out of the picture for a long time then.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. How did you... Don't ask questions. So, let's get to the part... Okay, there's two parts of this movie that stressed me out. You know which ones they are probably already. Really gave me anxiety. The last one in particular, I almost stopped watching it. I was kind of mad. So the first one is the acid lake.
Yeah. Driving a little fishing boat.
Yeah. So I knew automatically, I remembered, this is one of the scenes I remembered. Soon, like I didn't think about it until they got in the boat, but as soon as they got in the boat, I'm like, oh shit, there's acid. And then I saw the fish. I'm like, yeah, I remember this scene. And I guess I just, excluded it from my memory because of trauma or something. But damn.
This sounds so weird. Like, this is the part that, like, I always bust up laughing so hard when, like, they're in that boat and then they get to the end and the grandma jumps out in the water and she's, like, pulling the boat. She's like, ah! Ah! With, like, the most exact... Because I remember one time getting in a hot tub with my friend that loved Dante's Peak as much as I did. And I remember this hot tub, we were at, like, a hotel once, and it was so hot. Like, way hotter than any other hot tub. And I remember the first time I was like, oh God, I feel like the grandma on Dante's Peak. So like now every time I see the scene, I think of that hot tub experience. I know it's not nearly the same, but like it takes me to that where it's just like, oh, he's just walking across like grandma pulling that boat. I always kind of think when I watch that movie, I'm like, you know what? I think they could have glided there. I felt like they had enough. There's a couple. I mean, I know it does that thing where they're like gliding, and then all of a sudden there's a shot where like, why are they not gliding anymore? Like, I've been in a boat, like, sometimes when an engine goes out, it goes for a while. It doesn't just stop like a car.
Well, maybe the viscosity of the lake is different because acid or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is that in the boat, and like right when they're in the middle of the, crossing the pond, you start seeing the bubbles in the boat and like coming through, and like, oh my God, they're gonna leak, and like if they get in there, like everybody's gonna just boil to death, and it's going to be horrible. It's so stressful because they drag this out forever.
Yeah.
Like Pierce Brosnan's like trying to go there, like using this towel, like his shirt or something, to kind of pedal.
It burns off the propeller. That's like the part I always think about, like when the propeller gets burnt off or eaten away and whatnot. It's coming out. He's like holding the little girl too, picking her up, like Sally, don't touch like the acid down there, or whatever.
And they're like singing row your boat. Like the whole scene is like. That scene is done really, really well. It's really suspenseful. It's really like they're not going to make it. And then at the last minute, I was thinking of Dumb and Dumber with the grandma, because it's like right when I think you can't be any dumber, you go and totally redeem yourself, jumping out and pushing the kids to safety. And she makes it for a little while longer. They carry her down the mountain, but grandma, she got burnt up. She got burnt to a crisp.
You notice the other weird one, too, is right in this part, too, right beforehand, is that dog just runs off into the woods like a crazy fella. And that's like that thing where you're like, oh, I guess that's the end of that dog, Like,
they bring it back to us.
They bring it back, but it's like, I just accept, like, oh, I guess that's the end of the dog the first time I saw this. I'm like,
I almost went to one of my favorite websites, which is Does the Dog Die?
Mm-hmm.
I love that website because that's my thing about me. Like sad dog movies. I don't like at work. We had one at work, and I said, I'm not working that movie. I won't do
like
it.
My Dog Skip or something.
It was, what was it? It was that new one where Art of
A
Racing.
Dog's Life or whatever. Like the dog keeps reincarnating.
Oh wow, gosh. Drop my microphone. No, it's both of those were there. The A Dog's Life, the one with
I almost said Mila Kunis, but that's not it.
What's his name? Oh my gosh.
Frankie Muniz. Nunes?
Oh, that might be a different one. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm thinking My Dog Skip that one because that was like one of the. I remember like being like one of those ones where it's like he has that dog and it's there the whole time and what have you.
I don't do it, man.
It sounds weird. Like nowadays, like there used to be that part where like a dog would get shot in the movie and be like, "Oh my god, like dude, I don't know if I can handle this." Like there was a point in my life where at some point where it's just like, "Oh, the dog got shot. Oh, okay, I guess it's no different than the guy getting shot too." If they do the one where they drag the dog out, where it's like a really lovable friend, and then they have that slow death scene or something like that's kind of always intense. But like almost like if it's an action movie and the dog gets shot, like yeah, it's sad, but I don't know. I take it just like yeah, well, I guess it's like his partner dying too. So
I could handle John Wick.
Yeah, like John Wick. That's a perfect example. Like for some reason, by the time that movie came out, like it didn't bother me as much as it would have bothered me when I was a kid. I don't know what changed, but it was just like. Oh, okay, I get it. I mean, I'm pissed too. Let's go kill some people. But
yeah, no, it's that bothers me in movies. Real quick before I move on to everybody who's listening, there's certain things you hate about movies that you can't handle. Go to does the dog die, and it doesn't spoil the movie. It'll just tell you, dude. It's just like a whole giant list of things. It's not just dogs. It'll like, does an animal die? Is there like drug use, or is there anything that bothers you that have like brings up trauma? My other one, I only have two. It's dogs and then people screwing with your teeth.
With your teeth?
Yeah, I hate that.
So you don't like so it's like so none of that like Little Shop of Horrors like the original version of Jack Nicholson.
Hate it. I hate that. I don't like the curb stop scene in American History X.
Oh, American History X.
I almost turned the movie off at that point. I was like, I can never watch that again. That part anyway. Yeah, go to the dog guy. It tells you if any of that stuff's in there. And I have those two things I always look for. Sometimes I don't always go to it, but if I feel like, oh, that dog is in danger, I'll go check it out. But anyway, so yeah, the dog gets away. They're going down the mountain, and real quick, I gotta say where this movie really screwed up from a money perspective is this movie is a great truck advertisement, and from what I noticed, you don't really notice what brand the trucks are in this movie. Mm-hmm. This would have been perfect for a truck tie-in. Chevy would have, honestly, Chevy would have loved to be part of this movie. Ford or Chevy, really.
Well, they got some great trucks in it too, because you got the Toyota. It's not a 4Runner; it's actually a Land Cruiser that kind of like an 88 one or 89, give or take. That's the one Lyndall Hamilton has, and of course the kids take up to grandma's house. And then Pierce Brosnan one's amazing. It's got like that snorkel unit in it, where it's just like that part where he drives down to the river and he's like, okay, we can make it across. It's got a snorkel. And he flips the switch on, which I've always thought as a kid, I'm like, well, if it's got the snorkel built in there, why is all the water leaking into here? I mean, you've designed this truck so that it shouldn't, so that you could drive through like rivers, and then it's leaking through like that. Isn't that a little bit weird?
I don't know. I think it just keeps it from getting flooded.
Well, it keeps the exhaust, so the exhaust isn't underwater, so the exhaust is now above. Because, it's weird. Like, every once in a while, I'll run across and I'll see trucks that have that on there. I'm like, do you plan on driving through a river anytime soon? Because that's all I think about is Dante's Peak. You know what I mean? Like, because granted, like, every once in a while, you'll see people's trucks and they'll have that little snorkel thing on there. I'm like, oh, he must plan on driving through a river.
That's one of those things, if I had like a lot of money, right? And I had a truck, I'm putting that on there.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless. Like, it's just going to be there. Like, even if I don't need it, I'm like, why do you have a snorkel on your truck? Why don't you have a snorkel on your truck?
Exactly. Yeah. I also love that scene because you watch, like, Pierce Brosnan and, like, Lyndon Hamilton, they're like, we're going to cross it. We're going to breach this river like it's the Oregon Trail, And then, of course, everybody else is like, hey, look at that guy found a shortcut. So they just, like, are driving, like, their, like, sedans and whatnot into the river. Like, you guys... I mean, I know you're in a panic mode, so, like, any options. But did that look like a feasible option, like the river thing?
Something that crossed my mind in that I think of weird shit during movies sometimes. And my favorite thing to do is to think of the weirdest cameos that actually work. And one of them popped into my mind at that point. But I thought it would have been really funny when Pierce Brosnan and Lyndon Hamilton going across the river. Like, you see those other cars follow them. And then one of them, Clark Griswold, pops out with the kids. Or I guess we can or whatever. That would have been great. but so, long story short, because I guess we probably have to wrap it up. Pierce Brosnan and the kids go through all this traumatic stuff. His team gets out of town. We've covered the boss. The boss gets taken out by the bridge. So the bridge is out. They can't get out of Dante's Peak. They're done. They have to drive over lava, which that seems really intense. That one was pretty anxious too. It wasn't as bad as the scene we're about to talk about in the acid lake, but it was pretty stressful. But that was the scene I was thinking this needed to be a truck commercial because damn.
Yeah, you get that. Because I think that, like, God, what vehicle is that? That's like the Forest Service one where they take that and that thing's just peeling across over like the hot lava and whatnot. I almost want to say it. I don't think it's a Ford, but like it does short. It feels like maybe an older Dodge. I'm not too sure.
I was looking at it. I think it is. I think it might be an older Dodge. I was trying to find the badges and I couldn't find them because that's what was going through my mind. I'm like, what truck is this?
Yeah.
I know it's not real lava, but I'm just thinking, man, this could have been a great advertisement. But that seems really intense. And Pierce Brosnan, I mean, he delivers it really well. You really feel like he's really good in these anxious situations. Like you go, shit, he's driving across lava. They're going across an acid lake.
Well, that's like I was just say this real quick because we haven't really touched on this. Really, the ultimate take-home thing of this entire movie is it has like such brilliant real effects in it. So much of these effects are still models. It's like, I think that's what makes Twister and Dante's Peak and Independence Day and all these movies of this like kind of like mid to late 90s era so good that why we don't get movies like this anymore is because they combine like the best of everything. They had models, they had realistic explosions and realistic scenes, then they sprinkled on the CG. Well, everything wasn't CG. The CG was there to enhance, at the end of the day. It's like, that's what, like, every time I watch this movie, it's so marvelous. Like, every single time there's a sweet disaster scene, whether it's lava coming in, the town getting destroyed, or even when they have that dam bursting at one point, and it's that sweet model that they built for like 4 months. Like, if you watch on the Blu-ray, they have a big old fat special feature on it, where it's like they're like building that model and whatnot, and they put time and effort into it. And, they shoot it like, at 120 frames or whatever the heck it is. And then it's, bursting, exploding. And I mean, it looks as real as can be, but it's like, it's all a model.
Yeah, you can tell it's a model when you watch it. And the dam looks really good. And the water effect, the water going over it just looks, incredible. Like, that's one of the scenes that'll never be practical again. Like, if that movie was made today, 100% that CGI. Yep. They would never, ever, ever even, they wouldn't even consider building a model. The only thing, the rocks didn't look very good, and that kind of takes you out of it because the dam looks great and the rocks are kind of like, but dude, that was a great practical effect. And it is a shame because you'll never see models like that again.
Well, because if this movie was made in 2000, they might not have never used those models. Like, because models was already kind of, when this movie was put together, models still wasn't very common anymore. We were almost at the point where there's CG pretty much for most things like that. And I think that's what makes it so cool. Is I love models, any of those kind of special effects and so on, that they just, to me, because I guess at the end of the day, a CG dam bursting, even if it looks really good, it still always has that sort of like uncanny fake look to it, where a model's like, hey, at least it's something physical breaking. You know what I mean?
It's literally mimicking what would happen.
Yeah.
And you just can't, especially with water. Sorry. Water really never translates CG as well as practical water, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't have looked as good. And the lava looks great in this, all the ash, the town at the end when it's all blown up, except for the actual explosion of the town, which is practical as well. But it's kind of like the White House exploding in Independence Day, where it's pretty unrealistic, but it's really badass. Like, you get the bricks flying everywhere. That's pretty cool.
Well, I will say this: I actually pulled up some Mount St. Helens footage, kind of right after watching the movie again, and there was some of this disaster footage that they had kind of in that, and it's like, oh, it actually kind of looked like exactly kind of how Dante's Peak looked. Like, I thought Dante's Peak, for some reason, was kind of going a little bit, like, extreme with, like, some of that stuff. I was like, oh, man, some of it almost doesn't look that much different than that. Like, they obviously must have watched that and based it all off of that.
Oh, I'm sure they looked a lot at Mount St. Helens footage in the town. The only thing that was really unrealistic in terms of the actual explosion of the volcano was the way the buildings just exploded out.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, some of these volcanoes, when they blow up, it's like, I can't remember how many nuclear bombs. So maybe it is pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was like the Mount St. Helens footage. They were just like, when it was kind of has that like explosion and so on, like it was just shooting trees and everything like that. I'm like, oh, that actually does look kind of like it. Because that's what I was thinking when I was watching it too. I was like, well, it probably wouldn't be like that, like explosive maybe. You know, I feel like a volcano would be kind of like a slow destruction. But it's like, oh, maybe I'm off then. Maybe that's how it kind of looks.
I don't know. I mean, it was cool either way. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, special effects wise, oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, this film I give an A+ on the special effects. I mean, can you tell it's a model? Yeah, but it's still cool. Like that's the thing. I don't care if I can tell it's something. I'm like, okay, how well did you do it? And they did it well. So I give the film high marks for that. So basically, they get trapped in town. They can't get out. It's like all of these kids. They have been through. You think these people are going to die like 10 times in the movie? They overcome all these odds, and now they're stuck in town. Where do they go? What do they do? Well, two things were set up early in the movie. First, when they're on the volcano, the robot's not working, so they take this elf thing off of it, which is, I guess, like a global, it's like a GPS, essentially, made by NASA. They take it off the robot, and they just leave it sitting there in the office. And this is the one piece of equipment the guy doesn't get on his van when he gets home. So Pierce Brosnan goes and steals that. He's like, hey, we might need this because we're going to find some place to go. Where do they go? The abandoned mine where the kid was hanging out earlier in the movie. Brilliant.
Yeah. Of course, they got the dog too by this point. Like, there's that scene when they're driving across the lava. That's also that part where it's like, I get it. Like, it makes it for like the super happy kind of like ending. Like, hey, there was a dog. But they're literally driving across the lava and they're like, hey, there's Ruffy over there or whatever the dog's name is. And they're like, we're going to have one chance because I'm not turning around for the dog. So yeah. Linda Hamilton goes out there and catches this dog who's just like sitting out there on a rock with lava going. How did that dog even get on that rock? God knows how, but hey, he's safe, and that's what matters.
Dude, that was just like such a like cherry on top moment. Like it's like they got the dog too.
They got the dog too as they're crossing lava.
Yeah, that whole thing is intense. And so when they get to town and they get put in this mine shaft right as the volcano's blowing up. By the way, I have to outrun the pyroclastic flow in this truck, which makes it an even better Chevy commercial. Super exciting. The town's blowing up behind them. It's very War of the Worlds, where it's like all the shit's happening, coming at them. They get into the mine, and you think, okay, I kind of see how this movie's going to end. I'd forgotten all the stressful shit that happens in the next few minutes, and I was legit getting anxious. Like I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So first they get in there and the kid's like, hey, we got snacks, we got drinks, just welcome to my hangout,
Hey mom, this is what I do all day long.
Yeah, this is what I do, this is what I'm about. So Linda Hamilton and the two kids are hanging out with the snacks. Pierce Brosnan's like, when this is all over, I'm taking you deep sea fishing, but first my dumbass left the elf in the truck, so I'm gonna get it. So he goes back. And as soon as he walks through there, half the mine shuts off and he gets separated from Linda Hamilton and the kids. I'm like, damn, this is stressful. But you know what? He's just going to get in the truck. No big deal. And just turn the thing on and he'll see him in a couple days. Right? No. Rocks fall. He gets a compound fracture, bone sticking out, which is another great effect.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, so now he's got a compound fracture, but this is going to be painful a couple of days, really painful. But at least all he has to do is go in there, hit the button, and everything's good. Then everything starts caving in on the truck. Not only can he not reach Elf anymore, not only does he have a compound fracture, he can barely move. Now these rocks are pushing the truck in. I was so claustrophobic. Can you imagine being stuck in the truck for 3 days? A broken arm, and not knowing if you're gonna. That's like, oh my god.
Well, that's what I think about. Like, there's that part like afterwards where like they're at like his rest of his science crew's all there, and they're like, "Hey, how long's that light been on for?" They're like, "I don't know, 2.5 days." 2.5 days? days? You didn't say anything? Like, you knew this was going on. That's what I think about every single time I watch that. It's like, those guys knew, and he just didn't care. Like, why do you think that light's on, like, all of a sudden? You know what I mean? Like, there's only 6 of you that know what this thing does. Who's the one missing?
That stressed me out so bad when they say that, because I was like, when I seen that stuff, I know what's about to happen. Like, okay, they're going to see the lights. I'm thinking, oh, we just got to Portland. Let's see if there's a light on in here. Oh, there is. No. It's like, hey, how's long has that been beeping? So when I say Pierce Brosnan stuck in the truck, like, you don't understand, the roof keeps caving in. It is super stressful. So now, no food, no water, stuck in a truck with a broken arm, just hoping people will come.
Yeah.
If they don't.
Yeah, he's sitting there for 48 hours hoping somebody got this message. Hopefully hoping that the whole reason that he ran out there and grabbed that elf thing in the first place and then had to come back to the truck later on to activate it, that it is going to work. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. There's that point, probably all of like 6 hours into it, you're like, well, maybe the battery's dead. Maybe they don't notice this. What's going on?
I would have been like that 6 minutes into it. Oh my God.
You could almost, because they almost like, if they didn't have that mention of it, like, you could almost extended that scene, like, and made it really feel like it was like, oh, geez. Like, even if you just extend that scene by like 20 minutes, that sounds like a long time, but you could have made that scene feel really intense by being like, oh God, he's really stuck there for 48 hours. Because, in a sense, like, if it wasn't mentioned that it took them 2 days to get out there, and you didn't think about it in your own mind, you wouldn't realize how long that is. Because just imagine 48 hours of laying there on a truck, stuck, broken arm, like, not knowing if anybody's ever going to come to get you.
I hate it. And here's the one thing they could have done to make this scene a little better. They didn't have to make it 20 minutes longer. What I would have liked to have seen, which I'm glad they didn't do it because I was done with that shit. I was done with that shit. But what they could have done is, instead of just being like, hey, the light's on, and then cut to them rescuing Pierce Brosnan, it would have been really cool if, like, it cut to the truck and Pierce Brosnan's there and he's got his arm, bone sticking out. He's like, oh shit, everything sucks. And he's like, and it's like he's dehydrated, and you hear something, and then you hear rocks moving in, and it's like, anybody down there? That would have been cool. Like, to see that moment. And he's like, yeah, that could have made it more intense and made it feel like it was a couple days. But I'm glad they didn't do that, because, like I said,
they just gotta have him like instantly dug out almost. Whole crews out there standing around, 2 guys digging, 80 people stand there looking.
Yeah, I hated it. So much. Did you ever see that movie with Ryan Reynolds, Buried?
Yep, I saw it in theaters when that came out.
No, I'm not. No.
And that whole part, the ending part, like, we're getting there, man. It's been an hour and a half. We're gonna find you. Oh, well, what's this? Oh, it's a dead body. Oh, that's not you, Ryan. Cut the credits.
Yeah. I love it, but I hate it. It's just, damn.
I love that movie for the fact that, like, it literally is an hour and a half in a box. It's like the easiest to shoot. The most expensive thing in that movie is Ryan Reynolds. You know what I mean? Like, other than that, though, there's nothing expensive in that movie. It's like the cheapest movie you could possibly make, and that's why I almost went and saw it, and why I kind of enjoy it. But, like, I was just almost laughing when it wasn't because I kind of knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. They weren't going to find him.
Real quick, this is a good way to wrap this little review up, because we started off talking about bad dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I remember another bad dream I had in the movie, and it fits in well with the end of Dante's Peak and what we were just talking about in Buried. There's a little snippet in, I think it's Ocean's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens. It's something they say. It's, the part where Matt Damon's mom was interrogating him, but they don't know it's Matt Damon's mom, and then later after they find out, oh, that's Matt Damon's mom.
Yeah.
So she mentioned something like, we're going to arrest you. We're going to put you in a cell, and you'll be on your back, and it's too shallow for you to roll over and too low for you to sit up. And there's no windows. And I'm like, oh my God. That stressed me, just hearing it stressed me out so bad that night I had a dream about it.
It's freaked you out from that point on.
Dude, I had to have emergency surgery one time because of my appendix. I got hit in the side playing football, and they're like, "Oh wow, something's not right." And so I had to have surgery really fast. And they're like, "Hey, your appendix is about to burst. Like you have like advanced appendicitis, like mega appendicitis." Appendicitis isn't that bad. People get it all the time. Mine was like super fast, and like we had to rush into emergency surgery. And I'm like, do I have to ride the elevator? Because I hated elevator. I guess I am pretty claustrophobic, but anyway.
Did Resident Evil 1 freak you out when they have that scene where that lady is like, I can fit out through the elevator? Like, yeah, let's see if you can fit out. Well, I'm stuck all of a sudden. Oh, wait a second, the elevator's going again. Ah!
Yeah, I don't remember that one, but even I just watched Speed the other day, and even at the beginning of Speed where they're screwing around the elevator.
Looks up.
Yeah. I hate it. I hate all that shit. I hate it so much. But anyway, I highly recommend Dante's Peak. Highly recommend it. I don't enjoy it as much as Speed, only because there's a certain element of fun to Speed. I mean, it's not Speed, Twister. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, Speed's good too, but
Speed's good. But we reviewed Twister last week. That's why we're reviewing Dante's Peak this week. But I don't enjoy it as much as Twister, but I do really, really like it. If they would have just maybe had a little bit more fun with the characters, especially Pierce Brosnan's crew, I think it could have been even better. But the effects are better in this one, and it's definitely more stressful.
Yeah, definitely isn't that, but I think at the end of the day, it's like the effects and the look of this movie is almost like such a great takeaway. Plus, I think there's the location they choose to shoot it at and whatnot. That town's cool looking in Idaho and what have you. You know, it makes you want to go there. Like I was literally looking at it, like I was looking at pictures of it, I'm like, dude, the town looks the same today. I'm like, I should spend 20 hours and drive up there. Why not?
Yeah, it'll be not far for you.
It probably is.
Damn.
If I had to guess, because it's like very northern Idaho. I was looking where it's at. It's like, oh, okay, so it's like you're almost in Canada by that point.
Oh, okay. That's probably why I said that.
Yeah, because I'm like, if it's gonna take me like 12 hours to get to like the almost top of like Oregon, it's like, oh man, it's good to get even farther the Idaho out there. It's like probably would take at least an extra 8 hours or so. You don't think about it, but like you look at those states are always so large that you always forget like how long it takes to drive through them sometimes.
Yeah, you do forget how big those states are. Like it's here, it's like I go to Florida and I go through like it's like a 7-hour trip, 8-hour trip, and I go through like 4 states, like really quick.
Yeah.
I'm in Georgia in like 15 minutes. I'm not even joking. But you fly through Georgia. It's different, I guess, out west where every state's like a country.
Yeah, every state's like 5-6 hours long. A lot of times across through them if you're lucky. I mean, California itself is scary long if you had to go from like top to bottom. But yeah, one of the ones I was like, I'm like, man, that would make for a cool little like trip though, to go to that town that they shot Dante's Peak in, because it looks cool. It's just got that really neat like almost a mixture of like a Western town / it has almost still like the building designs of like what you see like in like the 13 Colonies type towns. It's a weird mix match of it, because where I'm kind of at, like you have all these like 1800s places, but they all have like that like gold miner, like Wild West kind of look to it. This town doesn't have that Wild West look to it. It has like a different kind of look, in my opinion.
I wouldn't mind checking it out, because I see the 13 Colonies shit here all the time. That's what I'm used to.
Yeah. I feel like it's like that town has the in-between between the Wild West and the 13 Colonies look, like slapped in the in-between with like a bit of Canadian kind of pride almost, because it's so close to the top.
That's very, very weird.
But yeah, no, this movie's one of the ones, I think the biggest takeaway more than anything else though is like the effects in it are like brilliant. If you're someone who's into like special effects and real effects and models and all that kind of stuff, like you can't almost get too many cooler movies than this. I feel like that mid 90s to about like late 90s is such a grand time period. I mean, even the movies this thing went against the Academy Awards for special effects, it was this movie, Lost World, Starship Troopers, and Titanic going against each other. Like, come on. Like, all those movies have brilliant special effects in them,
It's definitely an end of an era at this point in time. It's definitely right when people were making that transition and realizing CGI, hey, it could be more than a tool. It can be an entire damn movie.
Yeah.
George Lucas, you son of a bitch.
I-
But yeah, I do miss some of this stuff, and there's a certain charm to those '90s movies. And we've talked before. I mean, this is another thing about these '90s movies is, especially with disaster movies, is they're better before 9/11.
Yeah.
Because 9/11 made action movies and it made disaster movies a little more real and a little more sensitive, which I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you could have so much more fun with this stuff pre 9/11, and that is very unfortunate. So some of this isn't really Hollywood's fault. Some of the changes to this particular type of filmmaking are because of that. But damn, it was fun. The innocence of the '90s was fun. Like, he's gonna play. We'll just move somewhere else.
That's really true because like the 90s was all about the fun factor and having a little bit of attitude sprinkled over the top, and then the second 9/11 happened, that almost switches us completely into a new gear of the way that movies are made. That's where we start getting, not only do we get more movies that are grounded in reality, but they become more serious. They start getting the shaky camera because we want to have that documentary feel. Like there's a humongous change that happens right then and there. And, for better or for worse, I mean, at the end of the day, like, there's still tons of great 2000s movies. I'm not saying that that's not the same thing, but the 90s had that magic era. It was like one of those ones, like, movies don't always feel as much magical past the 2000s and up, you know what I mean? Like, there was a sense of magic that exists in the 90s. It exists in the 80s as well, too, but that good time period where, like, you could almost have a movie where even it could be a disaster movie, it still felt like it was a fun ride.
Yeah, well, I mean, the '90s were great. The budget was balanced. Everybody was happy.
Yeah.
We still had to lose money a little bit. It was a good day. It was the last great decade, some people say. And it's funny you mentioned the shaky cam thing, like, because Born Identity is kind of that penultimate like movie that was filmed like in production. They had to change how it worked because of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the first action movie that came out that was really kind of developed during that time. And that's when things started changing. They introduced the shaky cam and all that stuff. And that's really, I kind of consider that movie a turning point. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But that's like the turning point right there is that movie. And it's just now kind of getting, John Wick is the movie. It's kind of bringing it back a little bit, I feel like.
I agree. John Wick kind of takes us back to like the 80s in a sense almost, where all the Bourne movies, they literally define the 90s or the 2000s like as hardcore as can be. The other change is like I was thinking like video games is that switch between Metal Gear Solid to when Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell became really popular because that kind of was like, you know what, Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid was a little bit over the top, had a little bit too much characters, a little bit too much 80s 90s-ness. Splinter Cell is grounded in reality. This is how it really could happen. This is how it should be. And there's that change of character that starts to kind of happen right there. And, as well as once I remember, like, even being in the 2000s, like, I always kind of bothered me, like, man, why does everything have to be so, like, no color and, grounded in reality and all this stuff? But I almost kind of appreciate it in a weird way now because now that it's past, it's like, oh, okay. It was a time frame and it's kind of cool. But, like, I remember when things kind of came out, that's all I could wish for was, like, why can't we have color again? Why can't we have, like, larger than life characters? Why can't we have it be just a little bit over the top? I like over the top.
There's good movies in that time frame, and there are things I appreciate about that time frame, just like any cinema. But I will say this: the early 2000s, 2000, 2005, probably is the years of movies I revisit the least. Like I don't go back to that time period. But Bourne Identity is one of the few movies from that time period I watch a lot. I mean, I watched the Raimi Spider-Mans not that long ago, which the first two I guess kind of fit that era. Third one I pretend doesn't exist. But there's not. I mean, I don't watch the old X-Men movies. I can't even go watch the old Marvel movies from the era, like Daredevil, Punisher. I can't even watch that now.
Really? Like, I kid you not. This sounds so weird. Daredevil, especially the director's cut version, my all-time favorite Marvel movie, hands down. I like it more than any of them by far. Not
more than Infinity War.
More than Infinity War. I kid you not. I love that Daredevil one, especially if you get the director's cut one, because that director's cut adds like 35 plus minutes into it, so it makes a huge difference. It's so good. Like, it's so dialed in. The movie starts off beginning to end. I love it. But I know what you mean, though, because I think, like, the 2000s, it's like the 1950s. It's like there's some of those decades that just aren't nearly as strong of movie eras as others, you know? And it's like, I always look at the 50s kind of like the problem that it sort of has is that's when, like, movies just became almost a little too family-friendly, so they became kind of goofy. Not saying there's not good movies that come from it, just like the 2000s. But it wasn't as strong to me as, like, the 30s and 40s are.
No. Yeah, 50s weren't a great decade. It's kind of like, you know what, and we'll wrap it up with this, but I look at how things change. Mm-hmm. And, you know, movies kind of went on a downward slope for a while, and TV was the king again. And then you kind of have the Zoetrope crew come in the 70s. Yep. You have, you know, Coppola, Kubrick. Kubrick was already around, but Kubrick does, you know, some things. And then you have Godfather come out, and then Jaws, and they kind of, Scorsese and all those guys change it. And then it kind of started in the early 2000s to fade away again. Some of those guys weren't at their peak, it seemed like. Scorsese's a great one since then, but it seemed like they were out. And then when the Nolan Batman films come out, that's when I feel like things started getting better. Like about right then, it's like, okay, we're kind of getting back on track. And by the time The Dark Knight comes out, I feel like movies have been great since like 2008. Since then, overall, there's a lot of great movies. So,
you know, it's funny you mentioned the Dark Knight, because The Dark Knight is amazing, and so is Batman Begins. But those ones are the ones where, like, they so do the 2000s grounded in reality more than anything else when you really think about it. Like, because that's like so Batman is grounded as can be, you know, with like very, very, very little fantasy whatsoever in it. You know, and then it's like, as time kind of goes on, like, we've kind of gotten to, like, we've been kind of at a pretty good age where, like, we get hardcore rated R movies that, like, can be as violent, as bloody as can be, you know, because that was always a problem, too, is you get those eras where, like, all of a sudden movies are PG-13 once again, and it's like, oh, God, we're going PG-13 again. Like, we were such in a nice R-rated, like, I know, we're getting so distracted now from Dante's Peak, but I remember, like, do you remember when Rambo 4 came out?
Yeah.
I felt like when Rambo 4 came out, it was like, that was like the gates were open. It was like, violence is open. Go as bloody and gory as you want. It's okay. Because we started getting movies all the time. I remember like Tropic Thunder came out like right after Rambo 4, and it was like, oh my gosh, a comedy movie could be just as violent as like Rambo, and like it's all totally okay and acceptable. And there was a glorious period of like when rated R movies kind of went on. They kind of petered out about mid 2010s or so, because I remember like it was like when Expendables 3 came out, they went to PG-13. I was like, oh, we're going back to that PG-13 era again.
Yeah, we bounced back and forth between that. I think John Wick's helped it out a little bit now. Actually, honestly, Deadpool.
Yeah, I think Deadpool was that was our trigger back actually in. Like, if Rambo pushed us into a violent era and then it kind of petered out a bit after a while, Deadpool's bringing us back, because I think that said, like, hey, you know what? We can sell a rated R movie, and I kid you not, ages 5 through 95 will come through that door, because that was Deadpool. I remember going there, I'm like, dude, there's going to be, like, very few people here. It's Deadpool. Like, who the heck's going to show up to this? And I was like, oh my gosh, there's literally 4-year-old kids, and there's 95-year-old adults, and they all seem to be on the same page.
Yeah. Deadpool was real raunchy, and I'm surprised kids go see it, but Logan is another great one, and then now Joker just made like $1 billion in its rated R. So, I mean, floodgates are open with that, but yeah, don't worry. When we go off on tangents like this, I'm gonna save them, have them as bonus clips.
There's nothing wrong with a tangent; it all relates to movies and all that good stuff. So
I like these little things, and I'll just keep them as little tangents and little stuff, and I can use them later. So not this part. Okay, this part out. Let you get it. But anyway, yeah, Dante's Peak, 1997. We didn't even talk about the director or any of that stuff, but that's okay.
I think director is interesting because I actually wanted to mention this just because it relates to podcasts that we've done before. Okay, he did Species. He did Cadillac Man. I know that's like the most randomest ones that go together, but I'm like, those are the ones that jumped out to me. Here's the third one. Though we technically didn't watch it, he does the remake to The Getaway, which we did the podcast on the Steve McQueen version, but he does the Alec Baldwin version. That always sounds cool. Like, whenever I read about that Alec Baldwin, I'm like, man, if that movie wasn't like $20+ on Blu-ray, I would so buy it because it sounds cool. People even talk about like it's almost better than the Steve McQueen one. I'm like, the Steve McQueen one was already so good as is.
Man, it's funny I gotta tell you why it's funny you mentioned that in a minute. But yeah, it's crazy. I always think when I think of The Getaway, I always think of Peckinpah.
Yeah.
Because he literally died on my birthday, like the day I was born. It trips me out for some reason. But yeah, I mean, this movie's great. Great practical effects. I don't remember anything about the score. But the acting's pretty good. Pierce Brosnan, I think Pierce Brosnan's great in it. I think Linda Hamilton's great in it. Some of the other characters you forget about, but it really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It's about those two, and it's about the action and about blowing shit up. And this movie blows shit up.
Yeah. It delivers hardcore, literally. You get the volcano of death coming towards you. Yeah.
It's and then at the end you have a panic attack like I did. So if you're squeamish, heads up. Do you think I'm just like that last scene to me? If you're claustrophobic, that last scene's gonna F you up a little bit. It really will. So heads up, but go in there brave, and I'll probably watch it again one day, even knowing all this stuff. So but anyway, yeah.
They literally, as also this, they actually had to re-edit it in certain countries because of the violence in it and the gore and kind of. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like, at face value, it doesn't seem like it's the most intense thing ever, but like you kind of see where it's like, oh, it gets you on like a deeper level, some of these scenes.
It's one thing to be trapped in there, but then the whole thing to cave in, you got a broken arm, and it's just like...
It's poking out.
I hate it. And then they have the Gatorades back there. They're checking out with the snacks, Lynn Hamilton and them across the way. You know, we got drinks. Oh, you can't? Okay, that's cool. Hope you live. Yeah, it's just annoying. The whole thing's annoying. But anyway, Dante's Peak, definitely check it out. High marks. Let me know what you think of. Give us your opinions on what we said, what we missed out on, what we got wrong. Which I don't think we got anything wrong personally, but we might have. So let us know and give us your opinions. Check out Pizza Boyz. Link below. Go check out your webcomic and all that kind of stuff. And find us on Twitter at Via VHS, on Instagram at Via VHS Pod. And any last things to say before we get out of here?
No, it's just personally me. Dante's Peak is always my ultimate go-to classic disaster film. I love it so much. You know what I mean? Every single time I watch it, it takes me back. It's always a blast. But beyond that good stuff, any of my extra work, Pizza Boyz, Old Man Orange Podcast, all that good fun stuff, you can find at oldmanorange.com. Simple and easy.
Boom. Well, thanks again for listening. Check us out. We'll be back with some punk movies coming up next. And see you on the flip side. Via VHS is out.